Today I'm going to talk about human universality, determinism, and other intellectual realities. We're all born as individuals. Later, as we grow, we sort of learn that there's 7.5 billion other individuals out there that are exactly like us in every way that matters. And we have to deal with that backwards idea where I'm facing the world alone, except I'm not really alone. There's, almost 8 billion of me out there. And I think we kind of fail to realize that in every way that matters, in every sense that our existence as humans perpetuates itself, we're exactly the same as everybody else. We focus so much on difference, but our universality is determined beyond choice, and it's what makes up the majority of what we are. We all come from common ancestors that developed over hundreds of thousands of years ago, over millions of years ago, over billions of years ago, if you really think about the chains of contingency. So our perceptions as agents are universal because they've evolved over time in the exact same way. If you look at the iterations, we're almost all exactly the same as far as perception goes. So just because your color blue that you perceive is not exactly the same as my color blue, we shouldn't jump to the notion that we're individuals, complete individuals in the world. We face death alone. We have to deal with the idea that I am now one, later I will be zero. The presence and absence notion of our identity discontinuing, we have to deal with that alone in the moment. Everybody deals with it, but in the end, it's going to be your individual moment. Perceptions, while processed as individuals, are not absolutely different just because we process them as individuals. We've developed through evolution over billions and trillions of iterations, so it's safe to assume, though you and I perceive the color blue differently, for all intents and purposes, it's close enough. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to communicate in the world. In the most basic sense, for all intents and purposes, human universality is determined beyond our individual choice. What you can do and what your limitations are effectively universal at the start. We'd be stuck in a deterministic loop, completely dependent on our environment for our intellectual space, aside from a little smaller space for your imagination and maybe some planning. But for the most part, without technology, without education, we wouldn't be able to open up this intellectual space. Without language, this intellectual space would be collapsed and completely dependent on the environment. We're doing everything we can to survive in this environment, and we're coming up with ways to build shelters and get food and to conquer this. But ultimately, we'd be completely defined by those tasks and the intellectual space involved in achieving them. Without technology, education, without language, we can't open a purely intellectual space to grow. What you can do and what you can't do at the start is effectively universal. Tools and technology and education, process development, keep the intellectual space open for future iterations of the human agent to grow quickly and then stand on the shoulder of giants to move into their futures and grow the intellectual space even more. Technology and education really hold the window open for that to happen. The point I'm getting at really is that human universality is determined beyond human choice, and humans live in a limited environment in which resources are limited, but they all have the same needs. This is the condition in which ethics emerges, because there's really only two positions you can take. You can be one who considers the other and considers the limitations of the environment and how to react to that, or you can be one that totally ignores that, focuses on the moment, and gets as much as they can for themselves. Or even, you could maybe just be getting what you need for yourself, but you still not be considering the other. Ethics emerges when the person who considers the other understands that we live in a limited space and wants to be sensitive to the fact that they don't want to prevent another from surviving when they themselves can survive already. This is deterministic. So when I talk to people about objectively based ethics, a lot of people will insist that ethics is relativistic. It's not really relativistic unless you attempt to say all values are of equal weight, which indirectly says there's no such thing as ethics, because everything can't be of the same weight and there be any traction in pursuing a goal of goodness. The only way you can get traction in pursuing goodness is to have a metric, some kind of weighted goal that you work towards. And I'm telling you, universality is that. People that study the subject understand. Universality is not going away. It's not made up. It's an emergence. And there's only two real positions, and it's you can affirm universality or you can be whatever. Don't be whatever. You can affirm universality just slightly, remain conscious of it, but also pragmatic about your current condition. But don't be somebody who discounts it or doesn't give it an ounce of time. What does that make you as a person? Well, it makes you anti-human, really. It makes you anti-human in the most basic sense, because the group that you're a part of beyond choice is the human group. It's the group you've been determined to be. You have no choice. You are human. There's no choice. And if you turn your back on that, you're the core of what a definition of a hypocrite is, an anti-human human. Don't be somebody who turns your back on universality. Understand everything that's important is universal. It's been determined beyond choice, and this is in a limited environment, and this is the condition by which ethics emerges. It's not relativistic, it's relational, and it's not totally objective because there's subjective factors, but the majority of it can be seen and measured and tested. So make no mistake, relativism is a huge failure, avoided at all costs. If you like this kind of philosophical subject matter, help us out by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.